I'll turn things over to Sandra for roll call.
Very good, thank you. Please indicate whether you're an alternate or a delegate, please. Abington.
Delegate, present.
Avon.
Delegate, present.
Bridgewater, present. Delegate. Brockton.
Delegate, present.
Duxbury. East Bridgewater.
Delegate, present.
Easton.
Delegate, present.
Hanover.
You missed Halifax.
I thought she wasn't with us this evening.
Yep, no, I know, but we probably should just roll her name, so.
Okay, Halifax. Hanson.
Delegate, present.
Kingston. Pembroke.
Delegate, present.
Plymouth. Plymouth.
Delegate, present.
Plimpton.
Delegate, present.
Stoughton.
Delegate, present.
West Bridgewater.
Delegate, present.
And Whitman.
Delegate, present.
Alternate, present.
Thank you.
And for Madam Secretary, the alternate from Avon is also on.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mary. I was muted when I tried to say it.
All right, thank you, Sandra, very much. All right, so now we will be turning things over to Tom O'Brien, who will be doing a presentation on the Plymouth County OPEB opportunity. So I don't know if Mary, you wanted to do an intro, or we're just, oh, I'm sorry, I need to do the accessibility statement.
Thank you.
Okay. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Microphones or telephones will be used by all speakers. Large print materials are available upon request. If you would like either of these accommodations, please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833 extension 202. The Notice of Non-Discrimination Rights and Protections to Beneficiaries with regard to Title VI Non-Discrimination Protections and the State Non-Discrimination Protections is posted in this meeting room and is available on the Old Colony Planning Council website. Please contact Mary Waldron at 508-583-1833 extension 202 for more information.
So thank you, Madam President. And I think that there is a disclosure statement that Ms. Wright would like to present before we start this portion of the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Mary. As you all know, I am a Plymouth County Commissioner, so I will be recusing myself regarding the Plymouth County OPEB Trust, better known as the PCOT. With that said, I would like to welcome my colleagues, Treasurer Tom O'Brien, Matt Hanley, and Kate coming in this evening to provide us with information that would prepare us for going forward and making wise decisions for what is best for Old Colony planning. Thank you once again, and I will turn it back over, I guess, to you, Mary.
So if I could, I am going to make an introduction, and Kate, I believe I just needed 2 minutes before, so I can, hopefully I think I need to upload your new PowerPoint, so my apologies. But I think it was at our finance meeting that both Tom O'Brien and Matt Hanley were a bit arguing who knew me longer. But I did have the opportunity when I did work at the State House for a committee assignment that I was able to know Representative Tom O'Brien at that point, and knowing how dogged he was about on behalf of his constituents. He has brought that finesse as well as professionalism and fiscal responsibility to the treasurer's office. So with him today, and I'll have him introduce Matt and Kate while I pulled up the PowerPoint that Kate had sent along. So with that, Treasurer O'Brien.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thanks for admitting you've known me so long. A lot of people will not claim that knowledge. And thank you, Madam Commissioner, as well, and Madam President, and to the entire council for having us tonight to talk about a real exciting subject, OPEB, other post-employment benefits. Oh. Getting a little music, and that's our cue to go. Before we begin, the entire PCOT team wants to congratulate Charlie Kilmer for his 25 years of service to OCPC. I had a chance to look through the minutes and saw that he has that amount of tenure, terribly impressive. So Charlie, on behalf of the Plymouth County OPEB Trust, congratulations for all those years of service to OCPC. I know they've been introduced, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention again, I'm the Plymouth County Treasurer. I have brought along with me my special assistant, Matt Hanley, who is a value-added member of the team. He's here tonight to assist, and if we need any questions answered, he's available. And then Kate Canny comes from PARS, Public Agency Retirement Services, and you'll see that in our presentation a little bit later. So that's the team we have here. Before I begin, and I'm hoping to make this interesting, I'll be able to watch some of your faces and see if you're paying attention. I'll try and see if anybody's nodding off so I can flip quickly and make it interesting. But I want to congratulate OCPC for the funding that you've already done for OPEB, for pre-funding your OPEB obligations. You really deserve a lot of congratulations. I want to say bravo and well done. Your GASB 7475 report that is out as of June 30th, 2020, so you'll have another one done shortly, shows that you have a discount rate of 6.25%. I want to talk about that in a bit. But most notably and most important for your purposes, you have a funded ratio of 59.5%. That's great. That's really one of the best in the Commonwealth. It's probably one of the best in the country. It means that you understand the significance of funding this obligation, and you really have done a great job. So you deserve a lot of credit for that. You have some significant assets under management, over $800,000. You've reduced your liability. Your discount rate is 6.25. That's good. We think it can be a little better. If you raise your discount rate, you lower your liability. And that's really another goal that you guys could focus in on. And we'll talk about that during the presentation. So my goal today is to talk a little bit through a presentation that we have. I'll try and go a little slower than I did last night. I went very quickly through that. I know there's some questions that want to get answered. I'll try and weave those into my narrative and then leave time at the end for questions from anybody from the council, because that's probably where we'll all learn the most. I know there was a question that was typed into the chat room yesterday that I didn't get a chance to answer, largely because I didn't see it. And as you'll see in the presentation, one of the things we're proud of is that we enlisted the services of Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane to do an analysis and to confirm that our trust was compliant with state rules, regulations, and statutes. And so they did that. The question was, is there any conflict because OCPC uses Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, Lehane? And the answer is absolutely not. There is no conflict whatsoever. They were retained for our purposes for a singular opinion, which they've issued. And so we are all set on that front. And I just wanted to get that out. Before we get into the presentation, I wanted to talk a moment about the history of the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. Because back in 2013 and 2014, the other post-employment benefit world was the Wild West. People were trying to figure out what to do. They were trying to figure out how to fund it. I'm really glad that Dan Salvucci is on the call and Christine Joy, because they're also part of the Plymouth County Advisory Board. And this really germinated from their efforts because they tasked the commissioners and me as the treasurer to try and come up with a better mousetrap for funding OPEB obligations. Back in 2013, 2014, you really only had two choices at the time. One, you could join the state system, which had its pluses, but it had its minuses. And you could go with an investment professional, an investment team, a bank, or an investment company, which had its pluses and its minuses. But they wanted me to increase the number of pluses and reduce the minuses. And some of the minuses were with the state at the time, you had to sign a contract for 3 years. You had to commit to a significant level of funding. The fees were fairly high. The performance was great, but there were those minuses. And with an investment professional, sometimes the performance wasn't as great and they didn't provide any administrative support. So I did some research. I spent a lot of time, about a year, determining if we could create something that might be a little bit better, offer more pluses and fewer minuses. And what I came up with was a multi-employer trust, a governmental multi-employer trust. Now, while we're one of the first on the East Coast, we're not one of the first in the country. They started out west. They actually started in the private sector and filtered over into the public sector. And I found out that the best administrator of multi-employer trust was a company called PARS, Public Agency Retirement Services. And we reached out to them and said, listen, can we do this here in Massachusetts? Can we be a bit ahead of the curve? Can we come up with this better mousetrap? And they said, absolutely. It's a great idea. We've been doing it for a while. We've done it in California. We've done it out west. Let's do it. Let's do this for governmental entities in Plymouth County and set this up. So I brought the concept. Oh, the other point to make is PARS had a relationship with a little company called US Bank. US Bank is the 5th largest bank in the country. We like to say it's the largest bank you've never heard of. They don't have brick and mortar stores. They really do investments, and they're the largest manager of OPEB investments in the country. So we had access to a great administrative team and a great bank team. I think Kate would admit that I was a bit of a tough negotiator, because I said, listen, I think we want to do business with you, but I want the lowest fees that we could possibly have. And we negotiated those. So I brought the packet to the Plymouth County Commissioners on January 15, 2015, to create the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. As I was doing that, other treasurers in other counties heard about it. They thought it was a great idea and asked if we could include governmental entities in Barnstable, Bristol, and Norfolk County. So when the Plymouth County Commissioners created the trust, they included governmental entities that existed in those 4 counties as well as a courtesy. We expected that this would be a good project and meet with some success. I will tell you, and as you'll see through the narrative, it has been more successful than we expected, wildly so, both in terms of participation, assets under management, and financial success as well. So let's talk about the program that was created only 6 years ago, and what we're doing and why we think we have a little bit of a better mousetrap. So we're going to go through the slide presentation now. This is the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. There are, next slide, you had it, Mary. There are the 4 components which you talked about. Plymouth County as the sponsor. The investment oversight, and this is important, is done by an investment committee. So unlike if you were to participate with the state, you don't have any say through an investment committee. You just get the returns that the state provides. They're often very good, but you don't have a say in the investment portfolio. And that wasn't satisfactory to our group. That was one of the minuses we had to fix. So we have an investment committee. That committee is made up of our members in the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. So they actually have a voice in the investment decisions of the trust. We think that's unique. We think it's a great model. It keeps us in contact with our member units. We have a treasurer from a member unit. We have an elected official from each member unit. We have an administrator, and we have an employee from a member unit as well. So we really are looking at it from all angles. And then, of course, I've touched briefly on PARS, just a huge value add to the program. And that's really what's missing out of most of the other OPEB opportunities that are out there in the world, is the services that PARS provides. And then, of course, US Bank, well, all OPEB investment portfolios have an investment team. I happen to think, I'm a little biased, but I happen to think US Bank is one of the best. I actually mentioned last night that I'm the treasurer and chairman of the Plymouth County Retirement Association. We manage $1.23 billion. And I will tell you, in my now more than 14 years doing this job, US Bank is by far in the top 1% of investment professionals that I've dealt with. Next slide. So I talked about PARS and what they can do. You can read the slide. I like the fact that it highlights they were a pioneer of Section 115 OPEB trust and combo trust programs. That's the multi-employer trust component I was talking about earlier. What I really like too is that other point on there about how they monitor state and federal compliance. You can join any other program, but what we bring to the table is a group that monitors what's happening at the federal, state, and local level. They send people to federal meetings. They involve themselves in the comments. So I'm actually learning through PARS what's happening at GASB before other people. They do a great job. And then, of course, U.S. Bank, I mentioned, 5th largest commercial bank in the country, and one of the largest holders of Section 115 trust funds in the country. They are fantastic. You can see they've been around since 1863, so not a fly-by-night organization by any stretch of the imagination. Next slide. So again, I talked about this being designed for governmental entities in Bristol, Barnstable, Norfolk, and Plymouth counties. PARS is the administrator. And here's the point I made yesterday that had the question. We made sure we were legally compliant by utilizing Murphy, Hesse, Toomey, and Lehane, and Koppelman and Page, and that we are compliant at the federal level. So there's no risk here in making sure that we meet all compliance standards and guidelines. Next slide. This slide is really something that I'd love for you guys to focus in on because we truly are comprehensive. Again, you've got a lot of options and most people will provide consulting, and most people will provide certainly the financial component of a trust, the fiduciary investment management. But I don't know of others that do the federal and state compliance monitoring, as well as the compliant trust documents and the administrative services that we provide. And that's what I think really sets us apart. So we've got stakeholder involvement through the investment committee, and we have administrative support, which is particularly helpful to some of our smaller clients who need that as part of their support team. So it's very important that you have that support. We provide that through PARS. Next slide. So you guys already know this because you're doing it, right? Why pre-fund OPEB obligations? And I can't commend OCPC enough. I mentioned it at the start. You guys are doing this. You're already 59.5% funded, which is great. And you know that you need to do this to address your liability issue, address GASB 75, plan for long term. I'd like to focus in on potential for greater return because these are long-term assets. And I would say that one mistake I see from governmental entities is they tend to be too conservative. And what do I mean by that? Well, you know, one of the challenges we have is we're stewards of public money. So that obviously makes us very responsible and very conscientious and very attuned with our needs. And we're familiar with stabilization funds, and we are in a position where losing principal is anathema, is something it's against our instincts. And so we don't like risk as government officials. The downside, though, and this is going to be an interesting thought, with long-term investments, there's more risk in not being aggressive enough, because over a long period of time, if you don't have the right amount of risk, you're not attaining the asset level you need to meet your obligations. And so when you're looking at a long time horizon, whether it's for pension obligations or OPEB obligations, you really do need a certain level of risk to meet a rate of return appropriate. And that is where you get your fiduciary responsibility. As an example, most retirement systems have a projection of between 6 and 8%. And in order to attain that rate of return on an annualized basis over the 20 to 30 years, you need to invest in equities. You need to take a certain amount of risk. You can't just put the money in the bank and hope for the best. Because if you do that, you miss out on opportunity and you miss out on better returns. So you've got to capitalize on the opportunity for better returns long term. Next slide. Obviously, the other reasons you're putting it into a trust is to protect it from other uses. Governmental entities have lots of demands on their resources. You folks know that as well as anybody else. And so when a dollar comes in, you've got a plethora of opportunities. I could put it toward programs. I could put it toward staff. I could put it toward other operations. You've got a lot of needs. So why put it into a trust? Well, one of the reasons is, first of all, it's a liability that you have to pay down. And two, you're giving it a chance to grow. And finally, you're protecting it from operation costs and making sure that it's there there for the future, which is really what you want to do. A side benefit, of course, is it improves your credit rating. The more you pay off the liability, the better off you are. Next slide. So what do you do in terms of investment options? What are your choices? Next slide. So we tried to make sure that we had a valued partner in US Bank, somebody that could serve as a trustee, somebody that has the experience, somebody that knows what they've been doing, somebody that's been around for a while. And then we have the 5-person investment committee that I mentioned, and that committee meets quarterly to review with our investment manager, Dennis Mullins, to review the status of the portfolio. One of the questions I know that was sent along earlier was how often should a portfolio be reviewed for appropriate asset allocation? Well, we do it at least quarterly. However, if there's a need, we could meet more regularly. And PARS has annual meetings with each of our members, but makes themselves available at any point in time if there are any questions or any needs that anybody might have. So we do it as often as is necessary, but at least 4 times a year. Next slide. One of the things we heard from folks looking at us as an option, and just remember, we don't advertise ourselves. We don't have brick and mortar. We are here just as a public service to provide a resource for governmental entities. But one of the things we heard is that we want options. Anybody looking at us, we might want a slightly less aggressive option. That would be the income, or maybe slightly more aggressive than income, a balanced, or where we feel is a good comfort spot for something like a long-term investment of OPEB assets under the growth portfolio, and that's our original portfolio. And then we have a more aggressive growth for people that realize it's a long time horizon and there might be even more opportunity for growth. I will tell you, all of our members right now are in the growth portfolio, and that has had a pretty significant success story, which you'll see in a little bit. All of these have been custom designed. All of them effectuate economies of scale because the assets are put together. Each asset is still the asset of each individual entity, but you get the economies of scale of lower fees and lower administrative costs. We also choose low expense funds, no reason to overpay in the marketplace, which helps drive down our costs. Next slide. So this is really our secret sauce, if you will. I'm always reminded of the McDonald's ad for the Big Mac. Some people in my age bracket can probably remember the tune better than I, but it always had the special sauce. So what made the Big Mac special in their mind? It was their special sauce. What makes Peacock special? It's PARS and of course US Bank, but we're talking PARS here. These are the things they offer 1 through 10. You can read them on your own. You'll see with other options, you don't get the full slate of services. And that's really what we brought to the table. Again, it's the challenge I had at the advisory board meeting to create something that provided a little bit more in terms of resources. And that's what Peacock does. I have to say, because Plymouth County is not just a client, but we're a member, I have been extremely impressed. And I don't know if you can see Kate blush on Zoom, but how incredibly responsive and skilled and professional PARS is. Kate serves as our administrator. She is our team member. I will give you an example. I had to do a GASB 7475 for the county, and I had to get information from them in short order. And I said to Kate, I need an updated GASB profile for us to send to our actuary. Can you get it to me in a week? She said, we can get it to you within an hour. And all that information was assembled, available, and sent to my actuary within 45 minutes. I have never dealt with such a group of responsive individuals dedicated to providing this level of service. And I hear it from our members regularly. Tom, we love Peacock, we love the investment performance, but we really love PARS and Kate. Next slide. So one of the things that frustrated me as I was putting together the Plymouth County OPEB Trust Program was I couldn't find what anybody's fees were. I couldn't even go to the state and find out what their fees were. They wouldn't tell you. You had to ask and ask, and even when you asked, they said, well, it would depend on the portfolio. If you have X number of dollars invested in this product, it's Y. If you have different choices, it's Z. I'm like, just tell me what they are. Publish a document and tell me what your fees are. I even asked the investment professionals, tell me what your fees are. Give me a picture. I want to know. And they're not available. And I said to Pars and US Bank, I said, listen, two things. One, our fees always have to be the lowest in the industry. Two, they always have to be transparent and available so that anybody wants to know what our fees are at the drop of a hat, they can. So if you visit our link in our website and you see any information, you'll always know what PCOT's fees are. And you can see that our fees go down as we increase our assets. Gee, what a novel idea. Pass the savings on to our members. And it's proved to work exceedingly well. Right now, our all-in fees are 39 basis points or BIPs, which is 1/10 of 1%. A BIP is 1/10 of 1%. So 39 BIPs is pretty low. The industry average is between 50 and 75. So we've managed to reduce that significantly. And it's only going to go down as we grow our assets. And that's for both. Most people are paying their fee just for the financial services. They're not getting the administrative support. So you're really overpaying, in my humble opinion, for one service, not for both. Next slide. Love this. Again, it just shows how our fee continues to go down. And as I mentioned, because we crossed the $30 million threshold, our blended fee all in is 39 basis points. And what does that mean in terms of dollars? Next slide. You can see that with 800,000, and I'm sorry because my screen is being covered by it would be about $260 a month, and that is one of the lowest in the industry, really, not just in this region. And so we've achieved our goal of providing exemplary service at the lowest fees we could possibly create. Next slide. So what is the agency role? Remember, you as the board of the Old Colony Planning Council are the agency. We've tried to make this as easy as possible for you. All you'd have to do as a member of PCOT is contribute funds into the trust, obviously participate to whatever level you wanted to, either on the investment committee or in our regular meetings. You could submit the disbursements request. And there were a couple of questions about that I was asked to just touch upon briefly, and I will. And I'm hoping this isn't too obtuse, but I love this stuff. I could literally talk about this all night, and I promise I'll definitely be done by midnight. I promise everybody here, I won't go a minute past midnight. But so one of the things as you're putting all this money together, there were two questions that I thought came across the transom for you guys. One, what happens if there's an early retirement package? And by the way, I know there's a lot of talk about that up on Beacon Hill. My humble opinion as a former legislator is I don't know that this is going to be the time for that. But if it is, and people retire, what happens to your funds? Well, quite candidly, nothing, because you folks then need to make a decision if you want to continue pay as you go, which is what you are. You're currently paying your retiree costs, or if you wanted to use some of the funds in your OPEB trust to defray some of that cost. But that's a decision that's going to be made by the entire group and all of the stakeholders. You should include your actuary, you include your trustees, you include your treasurer, and you make a decision. What's interesting, however, is most programs here in Massachusetts have never dispersed any funds. Everybody's in the build-up stage. And so when they go to disperse funds, they're going to be scratching their head and say, well, how do we do that? Well, the advantage of having PARs is they've already done that. They've done that on the western part of the country, and they know how to disperse funds. And quite candidly, you would just work with them and say, I want X number of dollars to be covering our retiree costs. That is then something you don't have to take out of your operating budget and will help defray that cost. However, if you're reducing your assets in your OPEB trust, your discount rate will go down and your liability will go up. That's why you want to involve your actuary. That's why you want to involve your treasurer and make a conscientious decision about that. On the disbursement request, the real exciting thing is that when you get to that point, PARS knows how to do it. I had a conversation with them about Plymouth County and said, if we had a tough budget year and I wanted to defray for a year my retiree healthcare costs and take it out of our OPEB trust, and Plymouth County has built their OPEB trust up pretty significantly over the last couple of years as well. Can I do that? And Kate's answer is absolutely you can, Treasurer. Let us know. I would suggest most people aren't ready to do that. You guys are in a great position because you worked so hard to build up your trust. You may need to, in a tough year, disperse funds. I'd suggest you need PARs because they know how to do it. And then the other thing you'd be responsible for is monitoring the reports on the account and investment activity. So it's pretty simple. It's pretty well done. Another question that came across the pike was about whether these assets are insured by the FDIC. And you'll see on presentations that you folks have seen that all of them say not insured by the FDIC. And that's referred to as the no, not, may disclaimer. Because they are invested equities, there will be no bank guarantee. That's what the FDIC does, is insure bank assets. So there'll be no bank guarantee. It's not insured by the FDIC, and they may lose value because they're investments. So no, not, may, no bank guarantee, not insured by the FDIC, may lose value. But that's true of all investments. It's just a federal disclaimer that they require you to put on. And it really is so that folks that are investing these assets understand there is a chance, as we saw last February, that the assets can go down in value. However, we do believe long-term that they'll meet certain goals and objectives. Also, there was a question about bonding. And so our agencies, PARS and US Bank, has all of the appropriate insurances they need, including fiduciary liability insurance and professional liability insurance. They're not new to this game, which is why I was excited to partner with them, because instantly we have credibility, we have expertise, both on the administrative side and the investment side as well. Next slide. So, in short, rather than have listened to me for the last 30 minutes, you could have read this page. This is what we do. This is why we think we are unique. This is why people, when they hear about us, can't wait to learn more, can't wait to flock to us. Again, we don't advertise. It's word of mouth. We're thrilled. We had a chance to chat yesterday that there were some early adopters, including the town of Plimpton, including the town of Whitman. They got on board early. They have reaped the benefits of being a member of the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. And we're certainly hoping more people hear about it. Not surprisingly, as people begin to think of these things, our phone has picked up a little bit more as people are hearing about us. And we're certainly thrilled that our phone rang from the Old Colony Planning Council to ask us about what we're doing. Next slide. The other nice thing about us is we're local, we're close. I'm only a stone's throw from where Lee Hartman is right now. And so you can pick up the phone and call me and send me an email. Kate is available. It seems to me 24/7. Kate, I won't commit you to that, but certainly during all business hours. And we're here for you when you need us. Again, the value add is the administrative side of things. You can get investment advice from lots of people, but good quality administrative support is hard to find. Next slide. So we have a quick appendix here because we always get asked, well, who are members of Plymouth County OPEB Trust? And here are our current list of 29 members. I can tell you there are 2 or 3 members that are looking to join us in the very near term, but these are the ones that are with us that we can announce. I talked a little bit yesterday about 2. I'll only highlight one. One is that I'll highlight is the town of Weymouth. Now, why am I highlighting Weymouth? Well, Weymouth has a pretty big financial team. They have a team of 5 or 6 professionals. And when they decided to look to where to put their OPEB trust money, and they have some significant assets, they looked at every option from the state to investment opportunities with banks and investment professionals and us. And after a 6-month review, very thorough, I might add, I've had medical exams that are less intrusive, they decided to join the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. And we're thrilled. And there are some news articles which you may want to read. What I like to say at the end of this list is don't believe what I've been telling you. Call these people. Talk to any of your colleagues, whether they're boards of selectmen or planning board members or administrators or treasurers, and see if they are pleased with the service they're getting in Plymouth County OPEB Trust. Another point I should make is that when I set this up and worked with Kate and Dennis and US Bank and Pars, I said, listen, we cannot charge a penalty at all if anybody wants to leave. If anybody is not happy with the services we're providing, they should be able to go no. So that is one of the unique points of our trust. If you decide you found a better opportunity, 30 days written notice, you can leave, no surcharge, assets intact. We were the first to do it around here. Others are now thinking about that. And not surprisingly, others are trying to drive down their fees to compete with what we offer. But we were first, and I still think we're the best at it. And we make sure that we don't penalize anybody if we're not doing what we should do. Why did we set it up that way? Because it makes us better. It makes us responsive. It makes us want to make sure our customers are happy every minute of every day. So the next slide I wanted to show, I know that we had a chance just to, and Mary's going to upload it for us, send it off to you folks, because we had a chance to look at data as of the end of February. And we just thought we'd give you a quick snapshot of what you currently have and what you would have with Plymouth County OPEB Trust. And again, this is a snapshot. Ironically, there we go. Sorry about that. So this just shows from an investment point of view, how, I'll let Mary do her magic here.
Thank you.
Yep, how you would be doing with us and how at least we've done in comparison. So you can see from every rubric, and our returns, and I'm pretty sure the ones that are here for you are net of fees. So after all fees, you can see over a 3-month period, the returns. You can see over a 1-year period, the returns. Now let's talk about the 3-year period. That's pretty close, but remember that's annualized. So for 3 years, we've returned on average each of the years 9.81% versus a number that's lower. The real number that I want to highlight is the 5-year performance. This isn't a fluke. We're not performing better by luck. We're performing better because we have a great team, fantastic investment professionals that know what they're doing, and we have low-cost investment options with lower fees. You know, people say to me, but Tom, you're only 20 or 30 basis points lower. That doesn't really matter that much. You know what? It adds up to hundreds of thousands of dollars over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So it does matter. I like to say, if you watch every penny, the dollars take care of themselves. And that's what we do here at the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. We watch every penny. So 2 other important things that people want to know. They want to know what our stock exposure is. And you can see, yes, we have a fairly aggressive portfolio, 73% right now, under the growth one, versus where you guys are. But we just feel long-term, and history suggests, and in fact, I'd like to talk for a moment about the period from February of 2020 to February of 2021. I mean, during the pandemic in February, where the market lost 40% in a few weeks, I'm sure people were saying, oh my goodness, you shouldn't be exposed 70% to stocks. That's crazy. Thank goodness we're only exposed 40 or 30% to stocks. Well, ironically, that proved not to be a good idea even a few months later, as the market bottomed on March 23rd, 2020, and rebounded to sites never seen before. In fact, if you were in a more conservative portfolio for that 1-year period, you missed out on the greatest growth in the history of the United States of America. So there's as much risk in not being invested in a growth portfolio as there is being invested in one, in my humble opinion. And I think we've seen that during the pandemic. And then, of course, the fees, we touch base on it. There's our blended rate. There's what you're currently paying. Not too much of a difference, but I do believe it makes a difference over time. So that's it. I tried to weave into that narrative some of the questions that I knew you folks had. There may be more, and I really wanted to afford a chance. Before I do, if it's okay with you, Madam President, I'm just going to see if Kate Canny wanted to add anything, if I've missed anything in that presentation. I was 4 minutes under my time, maybe 11 minutes longer than you wanted. But Kate, was there anything else I should have added?
Oh, you covered it all.
So at this point, I don't know if there are any questions, but we're here to answer them.
Madam President, just as for the delegates and alternates, we are, after questions, I believe that Doug Silvestri is going to make a motion to have this, the presentation go back to finance, so the vetting and the comparisons can be further discussed.
I have 2 questions, Madam Chair. Okay, so my first question, thank you, Tom, for, as usual, giving us a wonderful presentation.
I was watching that and you didn't fall asleep, so thank you.
Well, I don't know, I had my picture off most of the time, so you don't know that for sure.
Oh, so you were cheating a little bit there.
Yeah. I always, yeah, anyway, that's another story. The 2 questions I have is, one, if Mary or someone can give us some insight into whether or not Rockland Trust right now is giving us the other services. I know at one of our meetings, we talked about the fact that our trust was not fully set up, so I'm assuming we're not getting that level of service right now. And then my other question was for Tom, and just when we talk about stock exposure, and that's something we did talk a little bit about with our current advisors, to what extent is that portfolio pretty diversified among companies and equities, to sort of lessen the chance that you get hit by a particular stock or a particular sector that gets hit, like in the middle of a pandemic, for example.
So, Mary, did you want to answer the first question? I can't answer that.
I'm actually thinking either Brenda or Charlie might be able to. Just repeat it one more time for me, Becky.
Oh, you muted, Becky.
Oh, I muted, unmuted and remuted. So my question was, when we look at the level of services that Tom was outlining that PCOT is able to get through PARS, including some services with regard to trust establishment or trust compliance. I know that when we met, there was some discussion of the fact that we still had some work to do on finishing our own trust. So I'm wondering if that tells me that those are services that our current investment manager cannot provide to us.
As I recall, the discussion from Rockland Trust was, well, our irrevocable trust was set up in 2012, and more recent GASB guidance, there's a additional trust documentation that has to be done, and that's fairly new, and that's something that Rockland Trust brought up within the last 6 months. So
then I guess my question for Tom is that the kind of advice that PCOT is able to give us in terms of giving us trust documents that would be compliant?
So the short answer, yeah, the short answer is absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I'm thrilled we have PARS. They've prepared and vetted all of our trust documents. Listen, there are a lot of great professionals out there doing this, including Rockland Trust and many others. They're very good at what they do. So please understand that. I think the value add that PARS brings to the table is this is what they do exclusively, right? They're administering OPEB trusts. It's what they know. It's their expertise. So when they draft up trust documents for us, they're done and dusted, and I don't have to worry about that. As a treasurer, I really like that because I avoid some of those questions that come up because I know it's already been done. So yeah, we got a heads up on these changes that were coming, and they came fairly recently. Charlie's absolutely correct, but we actually knew about them a year ago because PARS was able to notify us because they were following what was happening. I want Kate to elaborate a little bit because she is the representative from PARS and can probably answer that more directly. Kate?
So PARS actually has a history of managing OPEB trusts that dates back to 1998. We worked with a school district in California to help them address this liability. And then in 2004, we developed our multiple employer trust approach, which is a master trust document that, which is what Plymouth County operates under. That document and our trust received the first private letter ruling from the IRS, which guarantees all assets coming in and out of the trust are tax exempt. Very important for you as an agency who's funding, that you don't face any tax burdens. Also important for your beneficiaries. So we have that. And then the key thing is making sure your trust is always GASB compliant. It's kind of funny, the statute under which Massachusetts agencies operate their trust is MGL Chapter 32B, Section 20. And it didn't specifically say the trusts have to be GASB compliant, which for anybody who doesn't know, it's quite simple. The assets have to be dedicated to retiree health care. They have to be protected from creditors, and they have to be irrevocable, which, by the way, irrevocable for anything but retiree health care costs. Our trust has always operated under the GASB 45 guidelines. So our trust is already that way. We maintain those standards. We have both attorneys on the state levels of all 12 states we operate under, and also on the federal level, we have federal attorneys that are monitoring state and federal and IRS regulations so that our trusts are always up to date. In 2016, when the state legislation was passed to update MGL Chapter 32B, Section 20, we met with Kopelman and Page and Murphy-Hesse, kind of played them off each other to make sure there was nothing we were missing. Our documents were up to those standards, so we didn't have to change our program. But what we did is we met with all of our clients to make sure they understood that there were no changes that they needed to make. We were also able to guide new clients on whether or not they had adopted, which statute they had adopted, because there's differences in how you approach different boxes you have to check. So that's what we do for our clients and make sure that everybody's operating efficiently and appropriately under the standards. So that's my job, is to let you know that you need to update something.
So in short, Becky, one of the great things of having PARS involved, and Kate mentioned the change to Section 20, and as you know, I used to serve in the legislature, so I know these changes happen. We were already compliant before they made the change, and because PARS knew this was coming down the pike. And when I say we, that's every member of our group. Didn't need to change anything. We're already ahead of the curve. And so they are thinking of these things ahead just because that's their job. And that's why we have them. There was a question that came in on the chat about PARS. How long are they under contract? They have been retained for the life of the Plymouth County OPEB Trust. So they are with us. They understand the value of the partnership, as do we. And I think they pride themselves on serving governmental entities. And so that's what they do. And that's where they want to be. I was thrilled when Kate was recently promoted. I don't want her to blush again. But because of the great work that she does, she received an internal promotion, which was well-deserved. So we have PARS as long as Plymouth County OPEB Trust is there, unless, of course, something were to go awry, we could sever that relationship, but I can't imagine that happening at all down the road because they're so good at what they do. Your second question, Becky, was about asset allocation. I will tell you, I think we actually do it more frequently than most because we're forced by US Bank to hone in quarterly on that. I'll tell a little story. We are very diversified is the short answer to your question. We have every necessary asset class. One of the asset classes we were in was commodities. It's a good hedge against a fault in the stock market. But Dennis came to us about 7 months before the decline in the pandemic and just said, We see indicators from our 1,000 investment professionals that are indicating commodities are not a good hedge any longer, and we should be out of commodities. We had a very small portion of our portfolio in commodities. So the investment committee sat and we ruminated and we listened to what they had to say, showed us documentation. We said, you're right, get out of commodities, no reason to be in them. And then, not surprisingly to us at least, commodities took a bath in February and March. So not only are we diversified, but we check that diversity on a regular basis. If for whatever reason, a 73% allocation equities is a little bit more aggressive than the group would want to be collectively, then one of the things that you can do is choose one of our other options.
Thanks, Tom.
And Madam President, I don't know if any other delegates or alternates have any questions.
Dan, as a member of the Plymouth County Advisory Board and a fellow PCOT member, did you have anything you wanted to add? All right, well, I'll tell my story. So in 2015, my town was, we had some money that that we came into, and we wanted to get it into an OPEB fund. And we looked closely at the state's fund and also at Plymouth County. They came in, they did presentations. We really ruminated on this and discussed it because it was a lot of money for us, and we wanted to make the right decision. So we chose Plymouth County. We had a long-standing relationship with Tom. We felt very comfortable with them and the ideas that they had on investment, and we have done very well with Plymouth County. I'm extremely grateful to be involved with them and the support they give the town. We're a very small town and the support has been wonderful for our treasurer and others, town administrator, who are trying to plan for this liability. So I'm extremely grateful to Tom and the team for all the help that they've given us. And then one last thing, the reason that we wanted to bring this to the council was we wanted the members to know that we had options with our OPEB, and that it's a lot of money that we've got invested, and we just want to make sure that we've got it in the best location that we can to perform as well as possible for the council.
Thank you, Christine, for that.
So, Madam President, I was going to make a motion that we have to have the Finance Committee start the vetting process with this proposal, as well as the Rockland Federal Credit Union one as well.
All right, so Doug has made a motion to, Doug, did you want just the Finance Committee to do this, or did you want to create an advisory committee to review the proposals and make a recommendation to the council? Maybe under your, as chairman of the Finance Committee, under your guidance?
Actually, I mean, what we could do is maybe like a joint meeting. You know, have the advisory group come to the Finance Committee meeting and just kind of get it all done at once.
I think that's a great idea. And then maybe we may even have staff that would like to participate as well. So maybe you and Mary, and then anyone on the council who would like to serve on this advisory committee can contact Mary, and she can coordinate with you, Doug, and you guys can get to work on this.
If I could, just in case we have a lot of people, Lee Hartman, I would also just include that the appointments are made by the president, just so if all of a sudden for some unknown reason it becomes too unwieldy, I think we could just defer to you to allow appointments or decide who should serve on that committee.
Okay, good suggestion, Lee. All right, so we have a motion on the table to create an advisory committee to review Plymouth County's OPEB proposal, as well as what we currently have with Rockland Trust, and come back to the Finance Committee, and then finally to the Council for a review and recommendation. So do we have a second to
I'll
create the
second
committee?
that.
Okay, I'll second. All right, and that was by Stephen. So Sandra, can you do roll call vote?
Sure. When I do the roll call, will everybody please state your name? So Abington,
Steve Santisanio, accept.
Avon,
Frank Staffio.
accept. Bridgewater, accept. Sandra Wright. Brockton,
Sydney Merrill, accepts.
Duxbury,
Valerie Massard, accept.
East Bridgewater,
Peter Spigot Jr., accept.
Easton,
Jean Marie Joyce, accept.
Halifax is not here. Hanover,
No Hanover.
did I hear somebody from Halifax?
No, I'm still on.
No.
All right, Hanson, nope.
Deborah Petty, accept.
Kingston,
Robert Downey, accept.
Pembroke,
Becky Coletta, accept.
Plymouth,
Lee Hartman, accept.
Plimpton,
Christine Joy, accept.
Stoughton,
Doug Silvestri, accept.
West Bridgewater,
Eleanor, accept.
okay. And yeah, we did Whitman.
Town of Whitman accepts.
Thank you.
All right, beautiful.
Madam President, if we could, if Kate, Matt, and I would sign off, we want to thank everyone for the opportunity to hear what we had to say. We really appreciate your time and your hard work on behalf of all of your members. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Again.
Good night, Tom.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
Have
you,
a nice
Treasurer.
evening.
You
Thank
too.
you, Patricia.
Good
Stay
night.
safe.
All right, so we've got an approved motion. I would ask anybody that's interested in serving on this committee to contact Mary within, what do you want to say, Mary, a week?
Yep, that sounds great.
Okay, so by, what is today, Wednesday? Wednesday of next week, and then we'll go from there. We'll see what we have for people that volunteer, and then we'll get moving with the committee. So thank you all very much for that. All right, so we've got Howard Wright from Wright Technologies, who's going to be joining us. Mary, did you want to do an intro for Howard?
I do, and I appreciate this. And Howard is actually in sunny California, so we can all be jealous of him right now. But thank you for joining us, Howard. A number of communities had requested some information about not only because of us moving to Office 365, but wanted to kind of do an assessment of where we are as with our IT, but also for some information for the communities who are going through the process. The pandemic has really shifted us in how we function, not only as Old Colony Planning Council, but again, each of your communities. A year ago, we didn't even know what the word Zoom meant. Many were in the process of knowing maybe what Office 365 is, but there's a whole lot of information. Cybersecurity has become a huge issue and very costly. So Howard has a PowerPoint presentation for today. I told him that he has a short period of time to do all of this, and I can do this. Howard, if you would like to begin, and I'm sure I missed something, but go ahead, Howard.
Mary, if I may, just before we start, I do have to disclose that he is my brother-in-law.
Thank you, Sandy.
Very good. Thank you, Mary, for the introduction. So one of the reasons why I put this presentation together was a conversation that I've had with Mary and other organizations. When we reviewed assessments, IT assessments. I'm pretty passionate in this field, what we think is the way technology should be approached and delivered. And a lot of times we see these assessment reports, really they're geared for these vendors or IT consulting firms to get billable hours or to sell particular services. And so in some cases, they'll sell a server and no one will bother to verify if, the applications that sit on the server are going to be compatible with the server. Sometimes IT vendors will go into an organization where there's a IT manager, IT group, and they'll basically have a conversation, ask for passwords, go directly back to the executive director, CEO, and say, hey, they gave me passwords. They didn't do it in an appropriate way. We need to sell you our services because they're just not capable of doing it. Now you're creating this hostile work environment. So to that endeavor, it kind of made me, I started thinking about, the reasons, how we got there. And can you go to the next slide, Mary? So basically, organizations are going to, conduct an IT assessment for a variety of reasons. A lot of times they're offered a free assessment. Company will call up, they'll get an email, they'll get a phone call. Sometimes they're having ongoing issues, be it spam, you've been a victim of ransomware, network issues, you're having a problem with your vendor. When an organization gets to this point, this really means that you're ready for a change. And if you're going to do an IT assessment, you want to make sure it's as comprehensive as possible. Mary, next slide, please. So what happens is most vendors, and we've done this ourselves before, we don't do free IT assessments anymore. I don't think they're worth the time and the effort. I think most organizations really need to look at doing a comprehensive review. But anyways, most vendors will come in, they'll chat with you, they'll say, hey, what are your pain points? What are the problems? You can point out those problems, you can talk about them, and then they'll throw on a piece of software or a piece of hardware in your network, and they'll start reviewing everything on your network. Your computers, your servers, they want to know if you're running Windows 7, Windows 10, what version of the server, is the server still supported? Is the OS obsolete and out of date? They're going to want to ask questions about your firewall, whether that's up to date, your backup solution, and what it looks like, and probably some level of detail. Some organizations or some vendors will ask about IT security. A lot of times it's at a very low level just to get a basic a baseline. Other organizations will ask you about cloud services if you're using them. It could be a variety, your HR, your payroll, things like that that could be in the cloud. You may already be in the cloud for Office 365. Mary, next slide. What happens, they'll meet with you, they'll go back, they'll review the results of their scan, and they're basically going to come back with a report. I call it the bomb report because their goal is to show you as many bombs as possible, proving or showing you that you really need their services. But a lot of times there's, green means you're healthy, yellow means there's warning and some remediation is required, and red obviously is there's serious problems with your network and they need to be addressed. A lot of times that I see and I don't like, and I think it's disingenuous, is that vendors will sell you the concept of a cloud solution that if you're not technically savvy, unless you're in the cloud. And, a lot of times they're selling 365 and there are other cloud solutions that they sell. I always tell customers and potential customers, a lot of those decisions depends on the environment, depends on what you have, depends what you're running. So a lot of it depends, but they're pushing typically what I find is they're pushing an agenda and sell you a particular suite of products. Mary, if you go to the next slide, please. So the way that we typically do it, or we as a company review or view technology assessment, is that it's much more comprehensive. I always view it as a director of technology. Prior to starting my own business, I was a director of technology at a large nonprofit. So in that position, we controlled a lot more aspects of the environment than typical vendors would control. Mary, next slide. So in this area, there are additional things that need to be considered that needs to be part of an assessment. You need to know what kind of applications you're using. We call them line of business applications. QuickBooks, could be Jonas, Could be, you know, the paving software that OCPC uses. You know, we look at, you know, printers in, you know, phones. We look at all these products here. Security cameras. We actually had a customer which their security camera software their security camera system was compromised and it was saturating the network with traffic. It took us a little time to figure that out. The biggest thing that we worry about or I focus on is backup solutions. And I always say to our customers and potential customers, it's never a question of if, it's a question of when you're going to get compromised. And at the end of the day, the name of the game is recovery time. How quickly can you recover from a compromise, be it ransomware, be it, you know, phishing exploit, be it, you know, getting inundated with spam and junk mail. These are the things that I think are important. Things like wiring in patch panels. You can have the fastest switch, but if the roads that you travel are really bumpy and they're not very good, that's going to prevent you from, you know, functioning at the fastest speed as possible on your network. Mary, next. So what I think is the problem with a lot of these assessments is that what I find is so many organizations lack a technology plan. And putting together a technology plan requires a level, a comprehensive review or assessment of your environment. So what we did for Mary, we went in there, Mary asked us to take a look at the environment. So the things that we looked at obviously was, you know, their emails, their applications, their networks. So we made a number of recommendations. You know, one was moving to Office 365. For OCPC, it was relatively cheap. It's inexpensive. It's a very good solution. We also looked at, you know, their network infrastructure, getting that upgraded, which they did. We also looked at, you know, their paving software, which was a bit outdated. So we helped them migrate their paving software to a new server. However, they're in an environment where we recommend they should look for upgrading that. And then in addition to the 1-year plan, you really need to look at, you know, a 3 to 5 year plan. You know, what software you're using, where do you want to be in a few years? You know, obviously the pandemic has changed us into an environment where work from home, you know, maybe will probably still be around in some form. How do you operate in a work from home environment? How do you look at new technologies? Which technologies make sense and which ones don't make sense? Again, a disaster recovery plan. At the end of the day, there's 3 important things that when you go in, when you're looking at cybersecurity plans and disaster recovery, they talk about backup, backup, and backup. Again, it's having a system in place that allows you to recover quickly and efficiently. And then, Mary, next slide. Most important part of this is a technology budget. So the plan drives the budget, and the budget allows you to look at, you know, planning for replacing your technology. The problem is that technology in the last 5 years has become a lot more expensive. When you think about, you know, especially with cybersecurity, the layers of security that we've layered on top of our customers and that we recommend is just grown over the years. The pandemic has caused a lot of supply chain issues. We've noticed that hardware has gone up, laptops, chip shortages are going to be around for the next 2 years or so, which will increase the price of every piece of technology that's out there, including cars. Again, what we typically recommend for budgets and what we do for our customers is typically, you know, budget for hardware, making sure that you budget accurately. Software, whether it's going to be cloud-based or it's going to sit on a server. There's going to be a lot more subscriptions in terms of security needs. And then what we're finding is ongoing support. And that ongoing support can be a wide range of services. It could be full managed services. It could be partial, depending on the size of the organization. There are other options, is what they call co-managed. If you have an IT staff and they need additional assistance, augmentation, that is, other options for you to consider. But having the plan in the budget will allow organizations to look at their infrastructure and decide what types of technology that they need to implement. And so typically the things we do is finding a vendor who can make recommendations that does not always end in billable time. So we always make recommendations as though we were your CIO or your director of technology and we're responsible for your budget. And so we're going to say, you need to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't impact us, much like with hardware purchases. We referred Mary to different locations and different places to buy hardware less expensively than we could purchase. So those are the things that I think organizations need to think about and, keep in the back of your mind when you're looking at your infrastructure.
Thank you, Howard.
I don't know if there's any questions. Anyone has questions?
So the purpose for this was today is at yesterday's finance meeting, we went through a little bit more, some forecasting of IT and the GIS and the pavement software, a lot of the things that Howard touched upon today. Everything just seems to be tied into our IT needs, just the way the technology is. But Howard has been terrific in terms of being accessible. Text him at 7 o'clock in the morning or text him at 7 o'clock at night. And he and his team do see, like when we do lose power over the weekend or all of the things that it takes for us to stay vigilant and on top of things. So this was a presentation, I think that is helpful. So anyway, I didn't know if at this point, Madam Chair, if there were questions for Howard. It looks like there's not.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Howard, for your the presentation. And we had seen what you had started to work up for an IT plan for us that we'll be sharing down the road. So thank you for all your efforts on that.
Excellent. Thank you. Everyone have a good evening now.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, so now being 8 o'clock, let's get back to the agenda. So our next item is the minutes from March 31st. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes? Did everyone get a chance to read them, I should say first?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, so we have a motion, Sandra, second from Doug. Okay, so Sandra, could you take a roll call vote for the acceptance of the meeting minutes from March 31st?
Sure. Abington,
Delegate, accept.
Avon.
John Kosky, if you were on, could you go? Perfect, thank you.
Frank left.
Bridgewater, accept. Brockton,
Delegate, accept.
Duxbury,
Delegate, accept.
East Bridgewater,
Delegate, accept.
Easton,
Delegate, accept.
no Halifax, Hanover. Nope. Hanson,
Delegate, abstain. I wasn't at that meeting.
okay, thank you. Kingston. Is there Kingston? Pembroke? Plymouth?
Delegate, accept.
Plimpton?
Delegate, accept.
Stoughton?
Delegate, accept.
West Bridgewater?
Delegate accept.
And Whitman?
Delegate accepts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Brenda, how about the financial reports for March?
Sure, I'm gonna go ahead and read the reports, but if the screen doesn't move, Mary apparently has lost her internet. So I'm going to, she must be back. Okay, so the statement of expenditures report is where we start. Shows total expenses for the month of $143,388.94. Moving on to the cash position report. Shows income for the month of $270,767.77. Disbursements for the month were $315,648.94. Total cash available at month's end was $1,508,549.23. OPEB had a gain of $22,219.77, bringing the ending balance in the OPEB account to $831,458.20. Moving on to budget resources. Total receipts for the month were $272,767.77, bringing the total cumulative receipts for this fiscal year to $2,762,022. Moving on to AAA reports. This month we have 2 reports as we are preparing to close FY20 and move into FY21. We have submitted carryover amounts from FY21 to the AAA, but have not yet received approval on those amounts. This report will tell us the total fund carryover amounts that they have approved for carryover in the FY21 grant amounts. So AAA report for FY20, there was no change from the past month's report. Pass-through funds in the top graph shows total cumulative billings at $1,743,789, bringing the remaining fund balances to a total of $786,584. I'm sorry, my tongue has stopped working. The middle graph for ombudsman and admin funds shows cumulative billings at $317,682, bringing the grant balance remaining in admin and ombudsman to a total of $90,136. The allocated volunteer transportation funds account had a starting balance at the beginning of March of $188,174.14. There were no donations received in March. Total payments that went out to the volunteer transportation volunteers was $166.32. This brings the balance in the volunteer transportation account to $188,700.82. FY21 AAA report. Pass-through funds in the top graph shows total. Oh, you've moved on to the statement, Mary. So can you go back to the AAA FY21, or do you want me just to move on to the statement and activity report? Okay, so here's this is the AAA FY21 report. Pass-through funds in the top graph shows total cumulative billings at $203,000. I think maybe I should just go ahead and go to maybe I'll just go ahead and report on the statement. The 2021 statement and activity for ROM balance at the beginning of March was $178,160.33, which is what's circled at the top. March receipts were $5,850, bringing the total ROM FY21 receipts to $52,650. March expenses were $5,422.44, bringing total ROM expenses to $60,279.40. The ending balance in the ROM bank account in March was $179,209.36. Moving on to the budget report. I think Mary's having trouble with her internet, so. Okay, the total expenditures through the end of March were $1,312,334. Our percentage spent to date is at 64.10%, where the ideal percentage in the 9th month of the fiscal year would be 75%. So we're in terrific shape for this time of the year for our fiscal year. And that's all for the financial report.
Any questions for Brenda on the financial report? Doug, did you have anything you wanted to share?
No, I mean, like we talked about at the finance meeting yesterday, it's helpful to put in perspective the percentages of where we're at versus where we should be. So I think, like I said, I think it's really helpful. It gives the council just an idea of how close we are to what we're supposed to be at for the fiscal year, which is ending in a couple months, actually.
Great, thank you, Doug. All right, being that we don't have any questions, do we have a motion to accept the financial report for March?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Lee
motion,
Hartman,
Sandra?
second.
And
Lee Hartman, second.
Lee Hartman seconded? All right, Sandra, ready for roll call?
Absolutely. Abington,
Delegate, accept.
Avon, Bridgewater, accept. Sandra, Brockton,
Delegate, accepts.
Duxbury, East Bridgewater,
Delegate accepts.
Easton, Halifax, no. Hanover, no. Hanson,
Delegate accepts.
Kingston, Pembroke,
Delegate accepts.
Plymouth,
Delegate accepts.
Plimpton,
Delegate accept.
Stoughton,
Delegate accept.
West Bridgewater,
Delegate accept.
and Whitman.
Whitman accepts.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, Mary, how about staff report? Charlie, is Mary with us? Was she able to get back into the meeting?
She definitely is having internet
Okay.
issues.
Why don't we move on? Charlie, do you want to do the tip, or do you want to do the regional clearinghouse reviews?
Let's see.
Your choice.
Yeah, I'm just trying to load it up. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Mary has it back on. So, Mary, do you have audio?
I'm guessing she does not.
Okay, so I'll pinch it. So under MIPA, we have one ENF. It's the Old Pine Drive Well Development Project in the town of Hanson. This is an informational item, and it, as it states here in the staff report, the certificate from MIPA states that this project does not require an environmental impact report. So good news, and no council action required.
Great, thanks, Charlie.
Sure.
And Deborah, if you wanted Old Colony Planning Council to weigh in on this, you could just reach out to Mary or Charlie, and I'm sure they'd be happy to assist. So I see we've got Mary back.
Good Lord, everybody.
How was your trip?
Well, Charlie pinch hit it for you. He did the
I
regional
saw that he
clearinghouse
did.
reviews.
They raised this for everybody, right?
Did a great job, Charlie.
He did.
So we have been having issues with our Wi-Fi lately, everybody. Let me get this. My apologies again, and thank you for your patience, everybody, since I know it's been a long night.
I was going to say we had Howie on. We should have had him troubleshoot it.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we've been trying to deal with. So thank you, everybody. I am just going to do a high-level overview again. What I'll do is I'm going to share this document with everyone. I just want to first start off with last week, Charlie and we had received a message from the Congressman Lynch's office because they were doing all these earmarks that were due at the end of last week. We got the call on Monday, the holiday, and we had the meeting on Tuesday, and then we're off to the races to work with communities such as Stoughton, Abington, whichever the other ones, Charlie.
Yeah, it was Abington, Brockton, and Stoughton.
And Brockton.
Yep.
Needed to be up, it needed to be uploaded to a portal. There were lots of discussions. All I can just tell you is that Charlie did an amazing job. I know there was some last minute stuff that was requested even this week, and he pivoted and was able to address that. So it will be a high level that we're gonna, I just wanted to first give him that heads up, Charlie, the accolades, but there is a climate change transportation vulnerability assessment, active transportation studies, Kingston Board of Selectmen, Bill McNulty is going to be working there. We're hiring starting May 17th, another principal planner that replaced Paul Chenard, so we'll be back to full steam. We are just kind of, drone is up and running, and at least Kyle and ordering it and practicing, and so we'll be utilizing that as a possibility to again see potentially as a revenue stream, or at least the service to our communities. Again, Hanover and Kingston, Stoughton, and all the different things that are going on, the RSAs that are underway and participating in that. Charlie, I'm gonna ask if there was anything particularly that I missed that council members need to know about tonight.
No, we'll touch on the tip under new business. So
great, thank you. Thanks, Charlie. And the Community Planning and Economic Development Department, they have been doing amazing work in terms of not only the green communities, but also in economic development. They held the SEDS meeting, just need input about tightening that up, and how do they work with the council about economic development. Economic development, as I'm looking at Peter, is a key topic for the town, and how do we get there, and how do we support what the community is doing. But lots of different things that are going on. They've been extraordinarily busy. Lori added this in her highlights, but the municipal vulnerability preparedness has been hot on their topics. Lots of Halifax and Whitman, and I'm going to miss somebody, but they're all going on at the same time. So it's not just a one and done meeting, but it's a lot of meetings and engaging the community. So their work has been extraordinarily extraordinary. Dottie, I think, is still on, so she's going to do some highlights. And if she's not, the economic recovery, she's been knee deep, actually eye deep, and working with the different communities, introducing and being technical assistance, working with the chambers. It really has been the work she's been doing. I'm going to share with you after this meeting so you can read and share with your communities. Lots of different grants that are coming. Obviously, what's going on in the federal government, what's going on in the state, and trying to work with two of them. This has been an incredible experience, and I never take credit for things that I don't do, but you know, in terms of Easton being awarded a housing choice, Dottie pulled together this grant, and I think I've emailed everybody, but there's a local pilot program grant that's talking about shop business, and there was a meeting held today about an incredible opportunity for the communities to be business friendly. And drum roll, $350,000 to the town of Easton, and that's from an EDA grant. It's been a long time since OCPC received an EDA grant. It's not us, it's the town receiving it, but really Dottie's hand-holding with Mark Tisdale, who is just incredible. After for the town of Stoughton, we were, everybody was exchanging cell phone numbers and staying on top of that just to pull this through. So Dottie's work has been incredible. She did highlight their grant funding opportunities for COVID-19, and municipal grant finders are available. She has a whole page that, again, I'm going to share with all of you. Please, please, please promise me you read that and share with your communities. David Klein, I think you're still on. If you're not, the AAA and the work they're doing. I want to highlight Patrick Hamilton has come back to OCPC a part-time basis and really helping David out in terms of filing the reports and the funding. Again, don't forget, when David started, it was in March of last year. COVID was February. Patrick left and he's been very helpful. I don't get me wrong, but and then a whole bunch of money came to OCPC, the AAA, and trying to balance all of that. So Patrick has come back on. It really is going to be an incredible help and, preparing for National Volunteer Week. You guys are getting the newsletter, lots of great things that are coming. And as you saw within the report, they're really trying to close the books on federal fiscal year 21 and getting into federal fiscal year 2022. So all these things are going to be, their septic program is still being ongoing, and that's Sean Bailey. And then our GIS system, I'm not going to get into the details. We talked a little bit at finance in terms of capital needs in order for, the printer is on its on its last legs. But just the same thing as Howard talked about in the IT, that they're moving from what was, a software that would go onto your server, now is going cloud-based, and it's going to cost us some money. So we're going to prioritize all of that for the Finance Committee and preparing the next year's budget. Is Dottie still on? I don't know if she is or not. I'm going to share that federal grant piece. So that is the report for staff.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you everyone for their all their efforts on behalf of our communities. All right, so on to old business, status on the retirement legislation.
I'm going to just speak without showing anything, that we continue to work with our partners in MARPA in staying on top of the legislation. There are sponsors, and a couple of our local legislators have signed on. I've got to reach out, and I will keep everyone updated about that. But it's legislation that the Massachusetts Association of Regional Planning Agencies support. And so we want this legislation that would put a solution to that issue on the retirement. So that's that, new business.
All right, on to new business. So we've got a couple of tip considerations. Charlie, did you want to take the lead on those?
Yes, Madam Chair. Mary, if you load up the.
Is this where you want to start?
Yes, thank you. So we have two separate new business action items for the council's consideration today. And this is the first one on your screen. It's a tip amendment number 2 to the current 5-year tip. And this involves one project in particular in federal 2021. It's the Stoughton improvements at Richard Wilkins Elementary School. It's the Safe Routes to School project. Basically what this change in the tip is a cost change from essentially $3.2 million to $4.65 million. And this is being covered by statewide funds, so this cost increase does not affect any other project in the tip, so that's good news. And the good news about this is it's in the final stage of design, and it's expected to be advertised at the end of May for construction bids by MassDOT. So projects on schedule, and basically what we're programming here is the increase in the cost. So that's the only item on the tip amendment number 2. And this is an action item. It's out for a 21-day public review. So if we could get a motion to approve.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yep.
Just it's looking at projects and thinking about cost. Is that a cost increase because design changes, or because these type of projects are going up in cost?
It's more the latter, because one of the things we don't like to do is amend the tip for smaller cost changes over the 4-year life of the design. So we tend to like to do it more at the end of the project before it's advertised. So it's more of a catch up over a couple of years. And what's gone up in recent years is the increase in the weighted average bid prices in steel and concrete and unit for the bid items. So that's basically what's gone up. And this is what used to be the West Elementary School in Stoughton. So it's more than just a sidewalk and the off-road trail and the access. It's also includes elements to Central Street itself. So it's a fairly comprehensive project, but before it's advertised, they want to make sure that it's close to the weighted average bid price as possible.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Charlie? All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion to support the TIP improvement plan amendment 2?
Motion, Alden Rivera.
Okay, motion Alden. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second. That was you, Becky, right?
Yep.
Okay, second Becky. Okay, Sandra, roll call vote, please.
All right, let's roll it. Abington,
Delegate, accept.
Avon,
Alternate accept.
Bridgewater, accept. Brockton,
Delegate, accept.
Duxbury, East Bridgewater,
Delegate accept.
Easton, Halifax, Hanover, Hanson.
Delegate accept.
Accept.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Delegate accept.
Okay, thank you. Kingston,
Delegate accept. And I apologize for talking over the previous person.
okay. Pembroke,
Delegate accept.
Plymouth,
Delegate accept.
Plimpton,
Delegate accept.
Stoughton,
Delegate accept.
West Bridgewater,
Delegate accept.
and Whitman.
Whitman accepts.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. Okay, Charlie, on to the second tip.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So every year, the Old Colony MPO develops a new transportation improvement program. It's a 5-year program of projects. And in summary, for the draft tip that's currently out for a public review, it includes $62 million worth of road and bridge projects. Specifically, it's 11 road projects and 1 bridge project, and $45.3 million for the Brockton area transit. And that's a blended list of projects being capital improvement projects and also operational assistance to actually run the service. And a note that over the 5 years, it includes the replacement of 20 fixed route buses. So on your screen now, we have a quick rundown of the projects by year. In Federal 22, there's 2 projects, Avon Stoughton, Route 24, pavement preservations and related work. And the second project is Pembroke, Route 36, $10.16 million. Federal 23, there are 3 projects. The first is Brockton improvements and related work at Center Carrying Lyman Street. Second project is quarter improvements on Route 138 from Lincoln Street to the Canton Town line. And I note that this project is, due to its cost, is funded over 2 years. It's in 23 and 24. And the final project in Federal 23 is in Stoughton as well. And that's the improvements at Central, Canton, and Tosca Drive. That's geometric improvements and signalization project. And in 24, there are 3 projects. The first is Brockton, Route 123 at Plymouth Street. It's signalization geometric improvements. And the second project is phase 2 of the advanced construction for the Stoughton 138 project. And last but not least, in 24 is the Plimpton Bridge Replacement Winnetoxet Road over Winnetoxet River project. Going on to 2025, there are 2 projects. Starting off is in Brockton, intersection improvements at Lyman, Grove, and Summer Street. That's the signal. And then also the replacement of the adjacent Grove Street Bridge. And in 25, the last project is the quarter improvements on Route 138 in Easton. This is from Elm Street all the way up to just south of the Union Street, that 138 improvement project that was funded through the TIP and recently completed. In 2026, there are 3 projects. The first is in Abington. It's intersection improvements at Hancock and Chestnut Street, and preferred alternative for this project is the installation of a compact roundabout. The second project is Duxbury, signalization of the ramp system at Route 3 at exit 10 and Route 3A. And the third project in 26 is the Hanson Route 14 corridor improvement projects. And due to the cost on this project is funded over 2 years, and that would be 2027 and 2026. So that's our menu of road and bridge projects. And as we're scrolling here, this is what the actual TIP document looks like. Next slide, please. And then next couple of slides, scroll down. And then at the end, this is the transit section for the Brockton Area Transit. Again, in summary, $45.3 million for Brockton Area Transit to maintain a system preservation and state of good repair. We work very closely with the folks at Brockton Area Transit and MassDOT to make sure that there's available funds for this program on the transit side. And that's the quick list of projects by year for the Brockton Area Transit.
Any questions for Charlie? All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion to support the federal fiscal year 2022 to 2026 Old Colony Planning Council TIP project?
I make a motion.
Okay, Peter made a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, second, Stephen. Thank you very much. Sandra, how about roll call vote?
Okay, Abington,
Delegate accept.
Avon,
Alternate accept.
Bridgewater, delegate, accept. Brockton,
Delegate accepts.
Duxbury, East Bridgewater,
Delegate accepts.
Easton, Halifax, Hanover, Hanson,
Delegate accepts.
Kingston,
Delegate accept.
Pembroke,
Delegate accept.
Plymouth,
Delegate accepts.
Simpson,
Delegate accept.
Stoughton,
Delegate accept.
West Bridgewater,
Delegate accept.
and Whitman.
Whitman delegate accepts.
Great, thank you, everyone. It's nice to see so many projects in our towns throughout the region in that tip, Charlie. So that's great to see. Okay, let's turn things over to Lee for a report on a reporting out of the bylaw committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to start off, we have recently went through, if the council remembers, revising our bylaws, and we have a president and secretary for 2-year terms and a treasurer for a 3-year term, so we have overlap. One of the things we looked at we met on, hang on for a second. We met on April 22nd and we discussed this a little further, and it becomes a little bit of an issue when you look at that because you have a president for 2 years term, but they can't sit for more than 3 years total. So we're recommending just simply changing that. We recommend changing that provision from 3 years to 4 years so that now we'll still have the staggered terms, but the secretary and president can sit for 2 consecutive terms of 2 years each, and then the staggered term of the treasurer for 3 remains the same. The other thing that we want to do is, just with the consent of the committee, the council, is for those members sitting now, so we can create that overlap that the president sits for 1 year, the secretary that's currently sitting sits for 2 years, and the treasurer will have a 3-year appointment. And at the end of that, that would be his 4th year, and we'd go on to a new treasurer. So again, really just almost housekeeping items, because we're just cleaning up the 4-year term so it fits better with the staggered terms. And also, as we were looking at the document, we see that there was a section 7 that was duplicate. It just, those powers already show up above in the powers of the, I think that's the full council. So we're just striking those out because they already appear up above. So again, that's what we're looking for the board or the council to support tonight. Thank you.
Any questions for Lee? All right, hearing none. Do we have a motion to accept the bylaws as amended and presented?
Motion to accept.
Okay, that was Sydney. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Peter. So we've got a motion and a second. Sandra, roll call vote, please. It'll be so nice when we can meet in person and we don't have to do roll call vote.
I know. Abington,
Delegate, accept.
Avon,
Alternate accepts.
Bridgewater delegate accepts. Brockton,
Delegate, accepts.
Duxbury, East Bridgewater,
Delegate accepts.
Easton, Halifax, Hanover, Hanson,
Delegate, accept.
Kingston,
Delegate, accept.
Pembroke,
Delegate accepts.
Plymouth,
Delegate accepts.
Plimpton,
Delegate accept.
Stoughton,
Delegate, accept.
West Bridgewater, Eldon.
He got muted. Stand by.
Get a thumbs up. I see a thumbs up, right, Eldon? Thumbs up. Show your thumb up, Eldon.
I can't even see him.
Maybe he's getting those steps in.
Delegate accept, Eldon.
Thank you. Whitman,
Whitman, delegate accepts.
thank you.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you. All right. So our last item is the nominating committee needs to get up and running. And what we, as Lee had proposed, is we're looking to move to staggered terms so that there's I think it's better for the health of the council where we don't have a whole new board at the same time. So this 1 year, we'll have a 1 year term for president. The secretary will serve for 2 years and the treasurer will serve for 3. So Mary will be sending out nomination forms. If you're interested in serving on as an officer, please submit this to Frank Staffier. He is the chair of the nomination committee. Frank, if you're on, when would you like to receive these? All right. Mary, do you want to work with Frank on coming up with a deadline? I mean, I would think it would be relatively soon. It would be nice if they were able to make a report at our next meeting.
Correct. I will work with Frank and the other members of the nominating committee.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody, for hanging in tonight. This has been a long one. All right. So suggestions for future meeting agenda items.
Madam President, there were 2 members that indicated to me climate change is a topic. And also, I believe, John Costa, if you're still on, to talk about the topic of that you've had in terms of the MBTA and using herbicide.
Long night, so I'll make it quick. The MBTA came before us a few months back. I sit on the Conservation Commission in Avon. The proposal is that they want to do maintenance on the railroad tracks for the commuter line. We disagreed with their procedures and policies, and they want to use herbicide spraying in an area of wetlands that impacts the wells that supply our town with water. So we gave them a positive finding. They've whatever they did with that, they challenged that. The reason I brought up before OCPC is not only is Avon going through this, but there were 26 or 7 other communities. Of those 26 or 27, 5 or 6 are OCPC member communities, all of whom had challenged the MBTA's right to do this in the manner they're doing it. The town of Wellesley, which is also in this mess, has enacted legal action against the MBTA and has done so on behalf of all of the other member towns. So we're just looking to let OCPC know where we're at, and whatever help you can give us along the way would be certainly helpful. We've had some issues with the fact that the maps that the MBTA is using to determine the wetlands are old, and we just think that trying to protect our wells is the most important thing to us right now.
Okay, great, John. Mary, do you think we can work that into a upcoming agenda?
I can, and I know that Sandy put in the chat room about suicide prevention, and I know Lee also. Did you want to speak about the climate change, Lee?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So the Plymouth Open Space Committee just submitted a revision to the open space plan that focuses on climate change. So it's a little unique. It's in the open space plan. I think it's something we'd give as a fairly short presentation, but I know the Open Space Committee and Patrick Farrar, the energy officer for the town, was interested in presenting to the council just a little presentation on something I think is a little unique, which is climate change and incorporating it into our open space plan. So again, if that's something that's worthy of the group, I'll guarantee you, and I'll make sure that they keep it brief so that you've just got a good rundown and it's not 2 hours long.
No, that sounds great. Those all sound like really good topics for future agendas. Any other suggestions?
Sandy?
Oh, yeah, I thought you had mentioned it. I am on a group for the Suicide Coalition throughout Massachusetts, and I think it's a good awareness that we should bring forward to everybody, even in our own departments, that, you know, a lot of people struggle with depression and many other issues going forward with even our elderly community. I think that this is something that we should be make the people aware of. And there's a it's called SOS, and it's signs and symptoms of how you would recognize. We've gone out and trained all the police and fire, and I think we even went to OCPC Elders Service there and how they're treating their elderly people. But it's a good information, a lot going on, a lot of training, and I think it would be good to bring in and have somebody just make us aware of, you know, what is around us and what to be aware of.
Sounds good. All right, so we've got 4 good topics for future agendas. Perfect. All right, very good. All right, thank you all so much for a very busy evening, and we will see you all next month. Mary, when's our next meeting?
May 20.
May 26th, so the last Wednesday in May. So once again, recap, if you're interested in serving as a member of the executive committee, contact Mary or Frank Staffier. And then also, if you're interested in serving on that the OPEB review committee, also reach out to Mary. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
All right.